Before we begin, I'd like to just take a quick moment to let you guys know how much I appreciate the great team here at McCreary's Home Furnishings. They've partnered with me to make this show and podcast happen. McCreary's is unlike any furniture store in Sacramento. Not only do they carry the best furniture in town, they're also family owned and operated for 3 generations. Did you know that McCreary's also offers complimentary design services? That's right, the same services which could cost you hundreds an hour are offered all complimentary with purchase. I love my furniture from McCreary's, and I know you will too. Now, on to the show. Just great to be here with you all out there, and this is the Jerry Reynolds Show, and for those of you that probably haven't paid attention, that's who I am, and that's what's my show. And, and I've got a great guest here, very familiar to all of you in Sacramento, that is if you do watch television at all or read anything, Mr. Mark S. Allen, so we'll get to that a little bit, but we are in the beautiful studio here at McCreary's Home Furnishings here in Sacramento. The studio, just a beautiful setup here, set up for this show, and so we're really excited about that, and hopefully you'll enjoy the show, and if you don't, then we just don't like you much. So so you'll have to kind of get on board, I guess. So with that, let's chat a little bit with the star of the show, Mr. Mark S. Allen.
First of all, you deserve better. Second of all, I've been in TV like you most of my life. I've never had more comfortable seating than right here, right now.
This is really nice.
Can we give it up for McCreary?
Yes, sir.
You guys know how to seat.
I'll tell you what, I'm just as happy about the recliner that I got from McCreary's.
They hooked you up?
Oh, man.
That's the whole reason I do the show.
I do. I have about 3 naps a day in it. You know, Mrs. Reynolds isn't as happy about that as probably she should be, but she said, you know, it's like every time I see you, you're in there sleeping. I said, well, you know, I'm old, for God's sakes.
It's all relative.
Old people need their naps.
Everybody needs naps.
Yeah.
Like even the cast and crew of your show right now, all of them are on McCreary's furniture napping right now.
Yeah,
is anybody awake?
No.
Well,
one guy.
Yeah, one guy back there. Well, who cares? You know,
Exactly.
who cares about it? Well, anyway, a couple of real important questions early on.
Okay.
What does the S stand for?
Schmuck. I know it's a made-up name. My real name is Mark Allen Stell. But I started out radio when I was in high school, and I grew up in Odessa, Texas. And I don't know if you know, well, of course you know, Odessa, Texas, famous for Permian High School, one of the most award-winning high school football teams in 5-5 football ever. Well, if you didn't play football, you tried to stay under the radar. So I changed my name so that people didn't know that was me on the radio when I started in Odessa.
Is that right? Well, I mean, I always signed my name Jerry O. Reynolds just because there's a lot of Jerry Reynoldses, and so...
Oh, okay.
For autographs, I always put the O in there, which is my middle initial.
Give it some distinction.
Make it a little different, yeah. And so in case somebody tries to, you know, copy my name somewhere or another.
Well, I started going by just Mark Allen, and then I had to join AFTRA when I was working in New York, and they said, well, yeah, like you. They said there are a bunch of Jerry Reynolds. There were like 600 Mark Allen, so I had to change it somehow.
Yeah, that's what I figured that was the reason, but I didn't realize that you got creative even at an earlier age.
That was the case, and then later, one of my first program directors when I moved up to Sacramento was a guy named Chris Collins, who loved the Raiders. Like he even bought for like $250,000 Marcus Allen's Super Bowl helmet. And so he would always call me Marcus Allen. So then it just kind of flowed out as Marcus Allen.
Uh-huh.
I got kicked out of a golf tournament one time with Marcus Allen because he thought I was mocking his name.
Really?
It's a true story. What's the tournament that happens in South Lake Tahoe every year?
The celebrity.
Yeah. So I'm there just covering it, and we're doing a half-hour show on it, but I was following on the heels of Marcus Allen and his foursome the entire time. And then, you know, people from Sacktown go, hey, what's up, Marcus Allen? right in the middle of his backswing almost every time. So every time he turned to hear the commotion, there'd be this idiot, this tall, geeky white guy over in the corner, me, and he came over and said, and essentially just called me out for making fun of him. So I wasn't doing it. It's really my name.
Yeah, and I'm really famous. And who are you?
I didn't say I got kicked out of the tournament right about that time.
Yeah, I was going to say that has got to be a huge that thing. You know, I always remember when it started. You know, what I don't know, 15 years ago.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Every year, it just, my goodness, you know, with you know, of course, Tony Romo and Steph Curry and those guys. I mean, they get so many big names, and they're really good players.
Yeah, some of the most world famous athletes and some of the most world famous television and film actors all colliding in South Lake Tahoe at the same time.
It's amazing to me, you know, with in that particular tournament, it seemed like all the just about all the best players are former quarterbacks.
Right.
You know, it's like, which shows you, you know, the athletic ability that you have to play that position. It's not just, you know, you just can't be a big tough guy. You've got to be an athlete.
Yeah, and I guess it would play into just the mental state of athleticism. What made them great at their sport also puts them in that mind game of golf, with the exception of Shaq.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know that he doesn't have a great game.
Well, I mean, to the
golf.
I mean, invariably with quarterbacks, they've been good in other sports. I mean, obviously, linemen or somebody probably are one sport kind of guys. I know basketball players, a lot of them are just one sport guys. They really aren't good at all sports. But to be a quarterback, or always said maybe a shortstop in baseball, you've got to be very, you know, basically you've played a lot of different games.
Right.
So now let me ask you. I thought, was your first job in Amarillo, Texas? Is that correct, or was it
born in
Dallas?
Amarillo, but in the middle of a tornado, as a matter of fact. And our parents, because our house was destroyed, moved us to Odessa, Texas. And so I was raised in my early youth in Odessa, Texas.
Okay.
Home of Permian High School.
Yes.
The Permian Panthers.
The Permian Panthers.
And baby Jessica, who fell into the well. Do you remember that? Anybody? No?
You know, I do. I forgot where it was.
The world was on edge, waiting to find out if baby Jessica was going to get out of that well.
Are you on edge still, or are you?
I was already in California going, really? That's the best we can do.
No, I mean, and then your first job officially was in Dallas. Is that correct? Or
my first radio job was in Odessa, Texas.
Oh, okay.
And then I started sending out, you know, scholarship applications and was able to get into school in Dallas. And at the same time, landed my first big radio show in Dallas.
So you were going to school and doing radio in Dallas at the same time?
Right.
And no, let me ask you too. Like, when did you decide? You know, what age that this is what you wanted to do? You know, was there kind of that moment?
I was oddly drawn to the entertainment industry as a little kid. Like I used to get grounded all the time because I would sneak out of bed to watch The Tonight Show when I was like 7 years old, which is pretty odd in itself. But I just wanted to do that. I thought, man, if I could get a job where all I have to do is sit around drinking beverages all day long and talking to people, that's the kind of gig I want to have. And on The Tonight Show, they always look like they were having a good time. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
and look, you've achieved it. You pretty much have.
Yeah, well, and I'm not Johnny Carson, but you know that. But you're right. I mean, especially that show. You know, I mean, with Johnny and all. I mean,
of course,
about a comfort zone. You know, that we don't see anymore of a show, in my opinion. You know,
not until the very show that I'm on right now.
Exactly.
Has anyone seen that level of comfort?
Oh, exactly. You know, of course, Johnny was from Nebraska and just a small town.
Where'd you grow up?
French Lick, Indiana.
See, not a far cry.
Actually, outside of French Lick is Rural Route 1 French Lick. We weren't right in the city.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, we were 3 miles, and there's a little town of 50 people, Hillham. That's where the Reynolds estate was, outhouse and all.
Did you have an outhouse?
Oh, we had an outhouse. Yes, we did.
Look, I don't want to dive too deep into this, but in outhouses, like, did you have corn husk, or was there paper utensil?
We had paper, you know, not toilet paper, but like a Sears catalog. So, you know,
that's awesome.
I mean, I've always said the biggest thrill in my life almost was when I was in second grade. Finally got to go to school in town. And they had restrooms. And so I'd be holding it on the bus, you know, be a long bus ride, but I couldn't wait to you know, where you could go take a leak inside where it's warm.
But and if you look back at the life that you've had now, don't you think that growing up like that makes everything in life, you appreciate everything else in life that much more? You've been all over the world with the Sacramento Kings, following them, and you've been in some of the nicest hotels with Kings, and I mean, literally, you've hung out with not only athletes, but also royalty, people that come to these events. You've been around it all. And as a kid growing up in the Midwest, in the middle of nowhere, don't you find that you appreciate it that much more?
Well, I think you have to. I mean, I think certainly just my background that growing up there and then, going through the small college thing and the real world,
Sure.
to where, but now, quite honestly, I fully expect to be in 4-star hotels. And of course, unless, like I explained to my wife, unless it's on our dime, and then Hampton Inn is plenty good enough.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way to roll.
Plenty good enough. Everything, but yeah, no, you do. I mean, it's, as you know, I mean, you come up from, say, humble beginnings, to where you, like say, we had an outhouse and didn't have running water in the house.
That's right.
Things of that nature for a few years until, I think my dad got a little better job, and then we could live a lot better.
I grew up in Odessa, Texas. We didn't even have an outhouse. You had to go find a tumbleweed and hide behind it. And the hard part is that you'd be squatting, you'd have to move as the tumbleweed was rolling along.
Well, it's true. Well, I think it's probably some embarrassing moments there, wouldn't it? As you'd have to be a little quick with that tumbleweed.
You had to watch what you eat.
Yeah, well, I always say, the thing about the outhouse that I never really talked about much, but me and my younger brother at that time, it was real cold winter, we wouldn't even go down to the outhouse. We'd just go to the back porch, and there's kind of an area there that had a little stink to it, but when you're 5 or 6 years old, it's like, that's an easy choice to make. Mom would always she'd threaten us, but it's like, yeah, okay, well, I'd just about soon take the paddle and walk down there and freeze it off, But so anyway, when you got to Dallas, any kind of unusual experiences there?
No, I was just using it. By the time I got there, I had my sights set on California. When I was a kid, I told my mom, we took a visit to Disneyland, and I said, someday I'm going to move to California. Mm-hmm. And my mom said, California is full of crazy people.
Yeah, well, she's right,
With crazy ideas, doing crazy things. Mm-hmm. And I knew at that moment, I got to live there for the rest of my life.
You're a perfect fit. Thanks, Mom.
I always knew that I wanted to make my way out of there. So when I was in Dallas, I was just like sending out resume after resume to L.A., anything I could do to get to town. And then landed a gig on the West Coast and moved to L.A.
And the rest is history. A major star, you, Bob De Niro, Al Pacino. It's
The rest is history. Started hanging out with them immediately. No, I sent out resumes and landed a scholarship in L.A. and then my first full-time California radio gig there and started working there. And within a few months, the radio station I was working for purchased smaller stations all over the nation, and they purchased one in Sacramento. And they said, hey, we'll offer you great incentives. If you'll transfer college up, we'll pay for the run of show for you to go to college. And we'll double your salary.
Oh,
and I said, that's great. And I thought, I was with a friend of mine that had helped me get the job. And he said, I'm taking the deal. I'm going. And I thought, why? If LA is this awesome, how great must the state capital be? I'm taking that job. So I took it sight unseen and landed in Sacramento. We kept flying over, and I said, Where is the city? Where's the state capital?
Yeah, I was going to say, now what year was that?
1987.
Okay, yeah.
And how things have changed.
I came to Sacramento in 85.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I always remember our first thought, we're driving in, and it's like, wait a minute, there's a city, and there's no skyline.
Right.
And all you see is TV antennas. And I was saying, wait a minute. They have cable TV in French Lick, Indiana in 1980, and they didn't have cable television in Sacramento till the late 80s.
Is that crazy?
The last major city in the world, probably, or certainly in America, and I was just like, my gosh.
I remember when I first drove drove away from the airport, someone pointed out like something that looked like an abandoned strip mall, and that was the old arena.
Yeah.
Like, hadn't they just moved into the new arena right about the time 87 rolled around?
Yeah, that was, I think they were just finishing. I believe that might have been the first year.
Yeah.
Or they were finishing it up anyway. And of course, I'm older than you and been here a little longer, is that the original little tiny arena, the 10,000, then where the second arena was, I always remember Reggie Theus going out there to shoot pheasants. And now, which is obviously north of the Thomas, and
kidding,
totally built up and the whole bit.
Like back in the day when I moved here, like Roseville, you'd pack a lunch Like you would gather supplies, maybe even get a tent if you were making the long journey to Roseville.
Yeah.
And now this is kind of all grew together.
My wife and I moved out there 30 years ago, and there wasn't a Granite Bay even. I think, it was just a plan to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then so, which, it's fine, but I mean, it's amazing just how it has changed. As you say, I think Roseville was 40,000 people when we moved there, and now it's 140. And quite honestly, not a lot of reason to go downtown Sacramento other than the Golden One to ball games and things, But even though that's doing a marvelous job of developing the city, I think.
Sure.
But now, I had somebody pointed out to me that among your other talents, and obviously a very multi-talented person, was that you were a ventriloquist.
Sorry.
And
that would be Howard, my producing partner over there.
Howard, well, he's a kind of troublemaker anyway.
Yes,
anybody that knows Howard Baird knows that he's.
It's true. When I was a kid, because you'd see stuff on the Tonight Show, you would see Jay. I can't remember his name, but Jay and Bob that were on the TV show Soap. You would see Willie, Tyler, and Lester. Mm-hmm. You'd see the kids. Look at Google them, kids. They used to be ventriloquists. But I thought, wow, so that might be my road into show business. Truth be told, I broke my leg when I was in a ski accident when I was 7 and couldn't do any PE activities. And they parked me in a library and I started reading books. And one of the books was on ventriloquism. So I learned how to do it at a young age and then started doing ventriloquism. Put myself, like my first year of college, I supplemented with radio and doing ventriloquism gigs.
Now, I mean, did you have regular places you went to do shows and things of that nature?
Birthday parties, bar mitzvahs. Very popular bar mitzvahs. Like what kid goes, Mom, get me a ventriloquist. This is going to be a party. No, in fact, doing ventriloquism guarantees that your virginity is going to be around for a long, long time. As it turns out, I did not realize what a setback that was going to to probably would have had that as a hobby.
We do sympathize with you. Hopefully you figured that out for too long. I know.
I got around it. My first dummy was hand carved to look like me at that age. And then somewhere recently, someone had found a picture of my son at about 8 years old next to my dummy. They look identical. It's eerie. There's a horror movie in that somewhere, Howard. We should do that.
That would be an excellent premise for a horror movie.
So yeah, I did ventriloquism.
I don't know. I don't want to get too personal with your life, but let's see what else I was talking about. I know what I wanted to ask you about. In 1988, and you went up on a billboard, supposedly, for muscular dystrophy.
It happened.
I think. Yeah, and as I understand, you were supposed to be going to be up there 24/7 for a month or something like that, or a week.
A month.
I don't know. And within 3 days, you fell and broke your legs and about every bone in your silly body, right?
That's exactly what happened.
And even more amazing, you went back up.
Yeah, it was like I was afraid I was going to get fired. We had pitched this stunt to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and they said, okay, let's do it, where I went up on a billboard and did my radio show from the billboard every day, every night for a month. And then 3 days into it, it was the weekend, and State Fair was taking place, and this was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. I hear people yelling, and I had the platform that I was on was half the size of this desk with a tiny little pup tent. And I was on it, and I came out on the platform, and I looked down, and it was just some guys that had come out of a bar, and they wanted to prove there was a guy up there. And you're not really up there. And I came out of the tent and said, I'm really here, and it's to raise money for muscular dystrophy. You'd like to make a donation. And so I would lower a bucket down over the edge, connected to a rope. They would put money in it. And I started to pull it up, and these guys are schnockered and decided to mess with me and yanked on the rope and pulled me off. And so I fell, instantly broke 2 bones in each foot, broke my legs, broke a kneecap, concussion. And there was also a car passing by full of Encino High School football players. I don't know why I remember that, but Encino's no longer a school as... I think it's a continuation school. Anyway, they saw the whole thing happen, and I said, you guys, you've got to get me back up there. I'm going to get fired, because technically I was supposed to be wearing a safety cable and wasn't, thus the fall. I'm going to get fired. You got to put me back up there. So they put me back up there, and I sweated out through the night. And then the next day, the promotions director, a guy that's still in town named Mike Rogers, came by and said, you look horrible. What's wrong? I said, I fell off, Mike. And so they called the American River Fire Department, now Sac Metro. They lifted me off, got me to the hospital. I got casted up, and then I said, put me back up. So they put me back up about 3 hours later.
Wow.
And I stayed the remaining days.
So what you're telling me is you really not a big fan of load management.
Not so much. Not really.
That's an amazing. I mean, really, there's a point there where you'd say, I don't know about this job. Did that cross your mind?
Well, I mean, I love what I get to do. I'm one of those guys that in lieu of talent, I'm committed. And so I was committed to doing it, and I wanted to do it and wanted to follow through. And also at that point, you're deeply embedded personally, because at that point, you've met some of the kids who are being benefited by this. And I didn't want to let them down. So I went back up and sweated it out. And frankly, there was a tremendous amount of codeine involved at that point.
Yeah, well, I was going to say there'd have to be. My gosh, that's an amazing story, though. I just trying to think of when I heard that, is there anything I've ever done, anything? No. I mean, I remember as a coach in small college, once I kicked a chair and it was bolted down. I broke. And I'm, one of those deals you're going to show off and think, I'll kick his chair. And the chair didn't move. And
right.
It's like early in the half and it just broke my big toe as it turned out, And I don't remember assistant coach said something like, you all right? I said, hell no, I'm not all right. I said, well, we're not going to call any timeouts either. We're going to get through this till the half,
man.
But that's a whole lot different than having. But anyway, that was, of course, makes you more embarrassed than anything.
Is it funny? Like anytime you throw like a fit of rage or whatever, you're always going to kick like the chair that's bolted down. You're always going to punch the wall right where a stud is.
Yeah.
There's always something in life telling you not to behave that way.
Yeah, well, you reap what you sow. That's it.
That's right.
I mean, I think there's a little truth in that. If you want to act like an idiot, then you'll get what an idiot gets. I mean, as I think Ron White always says, you can't fix stupid.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't be here had I not fallen off that billboard. I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. It was a really slow news week, and I fell off. And so all the TV stations in town, KCRA, KXTV, Fox 40, Channel 10, they all came out to do live shots from this place where this idiot was living on this billboard. KCRA started doing like broadcast from the billboard. They did, Shelley Monahan was the weather person, and she did a weather report every night.
Sure.
And then the CBS affiliate, which at that time was Channel 10, did a story on it that get picked up by the national network, and a guy named Matt Chan, who was producing PM Magazine and creating an adjunct show for young adults called Scratch, called and said, hey, I saw you on the news having fallen off that billboard. I think you'd be right for my show. You want to be a part? So he hired me sight unseen to do this kids show called Scratch.
Of course, but that's a catch-22, though. I mean, you're right. Probably it helped you, obviously, in your career.
I would have jumped had I known this was going to happen.
But I mean, it's also true. You could have died.
It's true, right?
And so that would not have helped your career.
Had I died, my work would have been better. I guarantee. But
I mean, there'd be a little memorial of some type to you, I would assume.
It would have been a blip. There are many people, I don't know if you have trollers on your show already, but they're all jumping on right now going, the world would have been a much better place.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't happen. I'm sorry.
As you know, with the way the internet is these days and all that, there's going to be somebody say,
That kid show that I was on, Scratch, the other two people, Lisa Ling went on to become Lisa Ling, world famous, renowned journalist.
Yeah.
Partnership with Oprah Winfrey and like a show on National Geographic.
Well, you've been around, I mean, just about every super famous celebrity in America at one time or another, it seems to me, right? I mean,
I've had the pleasure, I've loved movies my whole life, and I've had the pleasure of intertwining that into my broadcast situation. So having done a syndicated movie show for the last 25 years, I've been on the set of pretty much every single tentpole movie imaginable.
Well, you've got, 6 Emmys?
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, that's...
It's shocking. You look at me like, how the hell did this waste of a human being get 6 Emmys?
No, that didn't
I saw the look in your face. But it happened. I don't know how it happened.
I would say, well, 1 or 2, maybe. 6? How did this guy get 6?
They could have blinked an eye.
I mean...
They obviously didn't check the reel before they gave it.
Yeah, I mean, were they just hand them out like candy?
They were just handing him. It was a really bad year at the Emmys.
I was thinking when I read that, it's like you could be like Kramer on Seinfeld. You could walk around carrying your Emmys, like,
nobody believes it, so I want to carry him around. No, it really happened.
Well, see, for your information, not that I've got 2.
I know.
For sports broadcasting, but just 2.
But well,
I mean, if you got 6.
it's because like your team probably submitted you, and then they got you the Emmys, and now they moved on. They forget. How many times they submit Grant?
Oh, probably 25, 30. He's got 2 also.
No, see, you probably were submitted twice and won both times.
I think
You're on batting 100%.
Actually, I think I got him his 2.
Exactly. You're right.
That's the way that's my stance. He owes me his 2.
You're gonna have trolls now.
Yeah.
The Grant team's online right now.
Grant's team's on. No, I mean, obviously, I am the beneficiary working with Grant. He says, real like yourself. I mean, real pros in the business. There's training involved. Do you guys?
I told you earlier when I came in backstage. I told you earlier that I get happy when I see you, and it's just because I can't think of Sacramento television without thinking of you. I can't think of Kings or NBA coverage without thinking of you. And so,
well, that's nice.
That association of which you and Grant side by side, and then to have the joy of having you in the movie that Howard and I made.
That's
very fulfilling.
Thing. That was really a neat deal. Obviously, Ball Busters.
That's right.
You and Howard Bird have been involved in I don't know how many movies, a whole bunch. I'm sure you can tell us.
6 now. Ballbuster coming out this year, 2020, probably late second, third quarter, 2020.
And I think Howard, who unfortunately we'll talk to at a later date.
Right. Wait, did you say fortunately or unfortunately?
Either way.
Yeah, either way. It depends on where
you can spin that about any way you want to. But I know he's involved in a few more. But now, how did you get involved in movie making? Obviously, your background, you know everybody in the business, that's for sure. And I mean, I'm sure that's a great advantage.
Well, I've got a lot of friends that are in the industry that have done really well in the industry. And I had always thought that my opportunity to get into the industry had passed. I told my mom when I was a kid I wanted to make movies for a living. I used to make stop-go animated movies in elementary school. And then just, grew up and out of it and thought that moment had passed. And had a lot of friends in the industry, but I didn't know if I wanted to go into the industry to fail. And then Howard, about 8 years ago, said that he was going to cross over into the industry and really taught himself in short order, not only how to get into the industry, how to succeed in the industry, but also sort of recreated the way movies are made. He developed his own sort of sub-studio system that was working. And I mean, full disclosure, about 4.5, 5 years ago, I had an incident where I had a DUI, needed to re-examine the way I was living life, and changed my life, got things in order. And Howard was one of the first friends to say, are you ready to jump in? Are you ready to make movies instead of talk about them? And brought me on board as a very small associate producer job on Notorious Nick, this MMA movie. Mm-hmm. And while that was in early pre-production, I was with Warner Brothers promoting Conjuring 2, a big horror movie they had at the side of the Preston Castle. And so I'm watching that on the screen, but then turning to this castle, and I thought, this needs to be a movie. And having been to the castle many times over the last few years, I knew that it had some inherent horror stories that needed to be told. Called Howard. Before I got to his house, he had done the research and said, I saw the castle, we're making that movie. And so we made that movie, pre-production to post to finishing the movie, just in time to roll into actual production on Notorious Nick. So we literally squeezed that movie in between that and making it.
Yeah, it's amazing how many you guys have turned out in such a short time. And by the way, weren't you in a movie? You had a small role in.
Let me look at these notes. What exactly are people telling you?
I don't even have that, but I remember reading. I thought I read it on.
So doing movie coverage, going to these sets, often directors will say, hey, since you're here, you want to be in? And so I was in Fantastic Four and Independence Day and a few other movies.
Independence Day, the resurgence, right?
Right. However, when Howard and I started making movies together, we decided there's nothing wrong with doing a Hitchcockian moment and sort of inserting ourselves, see if people don't blink if they see us in the movies. So we started dropping ourselves in.
Yeah. Well, I can understand you being in. I'm not sure about Howard, but
Howard's a tall, handsome man. He deserves to be in the movie.
Yeah, he is tall. Yeah.
The problem with Howard is that you can't really sneak Howard into a movie because he's like Chewbacca size. He is.
Yeah.
How tall are you? 8 feet?
6'4", but ask him what he played in Ballbuster.
Yeah,
For those of you who can hear Howard off mic, he said, ask Mark what he played in Ballbuster.
What did you play in Ballbuster?
We're on a conference call with our director, Tommy Hines, and there's a role that we haven't cast. It's a small role, but it's a pivotal role in the movie where someone at this special charity game, described as ugly woman in stands, throws an object at Jerry O'Connell. Can you bleep this? Like if we say, all right. So the scene calls for an ugly woman in stand to reach into her purse and throw a giant dildo at Jerry O'Connell. And Tommy goes, no, Howard said, Mark, why don't you play that part? And we all chuckle on this conference call. And then Tommy said, would you do it? And I thought, well, all right, why not? So I ended up being ugly woman in stands throwing aforementioned object at Jerry O'Connell. Now, it's supposed to land at his feet, at which he picks it up and walks it back over to ugly woman in stands. So very first take, Tommy goes, and action. Dildo. Boom! Whacked Jerry O'Connell in the head. Like, not even a half hit. It knocked him sideways. And Jerry O'Connell, being the pro he is, stayed in character and finished the scene. And that's the take that ends up in the movie.
Now not anybody could play that role, though. Let's face it. Pacino.
We could have cast a woman.
But no.
But I will say, Howard, did I accomplish playing an ugly woman in stands? I made a very ugly woman.
And by the way, for those of you that are still watching, Howard is in the studio. That's one of the reasons we're talking to Howard and making a little fun of him.
That's right.
But we would, even if he weren't here, we would still make fun of him.
With love. Love and peace.
With love and respect.
That's right.
With love and respect.
So you're in the movie. Is this your first role in a major motion picture?
A speaking role.
Okay.
Yes. Grant and I had a speaking role in LeBron James's first Nike commercial.
Oh, no kidding.
Which was very lucrative, in fact. I've always been a LeBron James fan ever since. So we did that, and then we had a little had a non-speaking role, I think, in an Adam Sandler movie where we were down in L.A.
Waterboy?
No, I don't even remember. But anyway, the director had us, said, we want you guys in the background here, because I think Adam was just at the game and as part of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Some movie, Laker game. And so, but we want you guys in the shot.
Yeah.
So we were in the shot. So,
How did your experience on that set compare to your experience on our set?
Well, just nothing. Obviously, your set was much more fun, and seeing Jerry McConnell trying to play basketball, that in itself was a joy.
We didn't really think that one through, but he delivered on the comedic side.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, actually, it's amazing how by using the stunt double and all, because, he couldn't play Dick, it's amazing how you can combine it and kind of make it look like he actually could play.
Right. We surrounded him by some people that could play, but you guys were great. There is, whether or not you live in Sacramento or know you and your performance with Sacramento Kings, the moment you appear on screen, suddenly it really leans into looking like a legitimate game.
Well, yeah, I thought, obviously with Grant, we've been together so long, like an old couple, so it's easy just to, it's like it's a Kings game kind of, and so we just played it that way. And of course, I was excited. It was legit because I was getting paid. That brings joy. That's true joy. I've always said the two most joyful things in my life now are the third Wednesday of the month I get Social Security, and I used to get per diem envelopes when you go on the team plane. Those are joyful times.
To get the envelope.
Oh, get that envelope of cash.
Well, you were remarkable in it, and I know we invited you to one of the test screenings of it. How was it watching your film?
I thought the best part was me and Grant, actually.
Ladies and gentlemen who haven't seen Ballbuster, I want for you, I know this isn't a dog and pony show, but I would love to break off a sample of your moment in the film. What's one of your big lines?
I love Royals basketball, or something like that.
I promised I wasn't going to cry. I love it. See you deliver the dialogue. It was beautiful.
Just, it was an emotional moment. Because the fact is, I grew up being a Royals fan, Cincinnati Royals.
Of course.
Which are now the Sacramento Kings.
So you grew up loving Royals basketball?
I did grow up loving Royals basketball, and Oscar Robertson, maybe the greatest player to ever play. Certainly one of them.
Well, this year we're rolling the film out, and as much as it isn't a basketball movie, it's more about heart and journey and redemption. It is also a basketball movie. How do we tell people about this movie this year? How would you describe it?
Well, it's a comedy about, redemption, courage, fighting back, overcoming adversity, screwing up a lot.
Got it. I didn't know if you were going to say
kind of real life, actually. Kind of like what our lives.
Mine especially.
Well, no, I was going to say anybody over 40 understands. I always say, it's like, okay, if you don't have some screw ups in there,
right,
you haven't tried very hard. I mean, that's part of the deal. You mess up and you learn from it and try to not do the same thing again. I always say that's the old deal about, they say, what is experience? Experience is learning that you screwed up and try not to do it again.
That's the point. Exactly. Show me someone who hasn't made a mistake, and that's someone who hasn't done anything.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to try things, go out on a limb a little bit.
Right.
But mostly, I think, be yourself, do what you think's right, which obviously. Now, let me ask you, I always want to know, you do all these celebrity interviews and things and been around the top celebrities in America. Mm-hmm. Who are some of the ones you really enjoy and had the most fun with, that you could feel comfortable with?
The absolute best, and it's a bittersweet answer, the absolute best celebrity that I've ever interviewed, and he was the person you wanted and hoped he would be, was Robin Williams.
Is that right?
Like, I've been in situations where I got into the elevator on my way to interview him when suddenly I hear, hold it! And all of a sudden, Robin Williams jumps in and rides the elevator ride. In fact, Essex Park Hotel, you probably stayed there with the Kings before, Central Park South, Essex Park Hotel. That first elevator right when you walk into the lobby, and that situation took place. I'm on my way to interview him this was at the dawn of the internet, and he was starting a podcast himself for Audible. And he was there to promote that, was going to interview him for him. So, hold it! And Robin Williams jumps in. It's me and a couple and their small child. And the kid looks up, and I can tell the kid recognizes Robin Williams before anybody. And it just will not take his eyes. That's how I realized who it was, because I looked at what the kid was looking at. And Robin Williams looks down at the kid and looks back forward, and everybody's being quiet and respectful. And then the door opens up on the 3rd floor, and they're headed up to like the 20th floor. The door opens up, and Robin Williams goes, and touched every single floor and jumped off and said, have fun, and then ran off. And that's going to be always one of my favorite Robin Williams moments.
Oh, man.
And I talked to him later. I ended up interviewing him like just a couple hours later, talked to him about that. And you could hear joyous laughter from down the hallway. No one's in the room but Robin at the crew, and he's working the crew the entire time. And then you get in, and he's still on. And then you leave, and you hear laughter all the way down the hall.
Unbelievable talent, wasn't he? It's just amazing.
Yeah, so one of the best.
Any other good, bad, ugly?
Sacramento's own Tom Hanks. One of the best of the best. He doesn't offer himself up for interviews. Like some of the celebrities, I've probably interviewed Matt Damon 100 times in 10 years. Tom Hanks, 2 in 10 years. Doesn't offer himself up that often. But when you get him, he's the guy you would hope he would be. Just genuine, down to earth, funny, insightful. I'd heard an urban myth that his very first professional acting job was playing Santa Claus in Sacramento.
Really?
Yeah, and he confirmed that he was a gangly 21-year-old, less than impressive Santa Claus at a now defunct strip mall on Watt Avenue.
Yeah, it's amazing, too, because, you get an impression as a movie fan like I am, of Tom Hanks, and you want to believe that he's a great guy because he seems like it.
Right.
And then you find out it's nice to find out he's who you thought he was.
Yeah, he's absolutely that guy.
Because I know with, sometimes with athletes, some of them aren't who you thought they were, and some are just exactly.
I want to interview you. Who do you hate? Who's been the biggest jerk you've ever dealt with through the years? You can't say, can you? Because you're still in the game.
There's a couple that were very difficult to be around, but I can't say there's just terrible jerks. There's the great guys, the Francisco Garcias, and Peja Stojakovic's, and there were just Eddie Johnson's, Mike Woodson. They were just pros, easy to be around. Jimmy Les,
right.
It has nothing. The thing I'd always say is it never has anything to do with how good they are. some guys could be the 12th man and be a great guy, and somebody could be a star and be a pain in the butt,
Yeah.
I mean, like Reggie Theus, I really love Reggie. He was Reggie. Yeah, and I enjoyed him. Now, I always say Reggie had the ability to break every play.
Right.
And so it would benefit him. I mean, he was very smart. He was a little selfish.
Right.
But I always say, people say, well, if did his teammates? I said they loved him. They just one of those things. That's Reggie.
Yeah.
We know Reggie.
You have to understand him.
Yeah,
And expect.
that's just who he is. And I mean, now there's some guys that wouldn't have been able to pull it off, but he was such a likable person, and he was so gifted. I mean, and that's the other part of it. He was really good.
Right.
So
you have to afford.
You have to give him. Yeah, I always say. Yeah, I always say probably like in any field, there's, basically democracy is related to how good you are.
Right.
I mean, everybody has to, I always say, every player on a team has to be willing to sacrifice something to fit in. The better you are, you sacrifice the less. If you're not very good, you better find a way to be valuable. Just like it probably in any job.
Yeah, pretty much.
And a lot of the young people, I think, don't quite get that. They think, well, I should be treated like so-and-so has been there 5 years and is really a great salesman, but I'm here every day. Well, that don't cut it. Are you selling as much?
I bet our jobs have been similar through the years because I've met so many rookie entertainers, so many rookie movie stars or on the way to being movie stars that were just absolute jerks that assumed that they were going to be there to stay. And then suddenly they don't work for 5 or 6 years. They come back in the circuit and they're the kindest people in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody, I always said so many players, most players need traded. I mean, they come in the league, high draft picks, think they're second Michael Jordan or whatever.
Just to take the gloss of immortality off of them for a minute.
The reality settles in, and they, once they get traded, then the reality settles in, and they've got a chance to maybe find their way. I mean, but I think almost in all cases, you can go through King's history, whether it's a Bobby Jackson or a Doug Christie that, that maybe went through 3 or 4 teams before they really found themselves. And then, of course, they were terrific. But they needed that, and they'd tell you that.
The closest I ever got to what you do, there was one of the first times the Kings were really going the distance. This would have been about what, 2003?
2001,
2001, 2. So it was all hands on deck. I was working for a station that covered the Kings, and so anybody, they were pulling in like the guy that washes cars. You go interview a King. They were getting everybody on deck, and they assigned me to spend a day in the life of a Sacramento King. So I got assigned to Scott Pollard.
Oh, Scott. Well, that would have been a perfect fit, yeah.
Loved Scott. Hysterical. The best part, the best discussions I can't even share right now. There's probably an NDA that's been signed. But I will tell you this. It was a day in the life of Scott Pollard. So we literally, from 4 a.m. until midnight that night, we were with Scott Pollard, rolling with him every second of the day. And at least 3 stops, he ate way more fast food than you would expect a pro athlete to eat. Every time we would stop, he would get up to the counter. Can we take your order, please? And Scott would say, yeah, I'd like a Whopper and a large order of fries and a vanilla shake. And while you're at it, I'd like a chicken sandwich. And we thought, what a nice guy. He's ordering for us. He realizes
it's for him.
Stuck with him for the day. Yeah. No, we didn't get a thing. 5 times we went through a drive-through. For God's sake, just once we were hoping he would at least throw us a courtesy glass of water. Nothing. It was like we weren't there the entire day. God bless him. I love it.
Oh, he's the funniest guy. I mean,
believe me, I would have starved. I would have gone with dehydration to hear some of the stories along the way, to be a fly on the wall.
He's one of those guys that he enjoyed his career. That's for sure.
No kidding. He did not waste celebrity at all.
I was just thinking about the food thing. I always remember working with Bill Russell for a number of years, and we'd go out to lunch, and it'd be the same kind of thing. He'd order about 3 or 4 entrees. And so,
yeah.
And then, take a bite of each one or something like that. And what? Growing up in Indiana, it's like you're wasting food. The poor kids are, but anyway.
It's good to be a king.
It's good to be a king, especially if you've got an unlimited expense account.
Exactly.
It helps a lot. So,
can I just point out for those that have been watching for a while, we didn't call to coordinate the fact that we were going to wear blues and light blue shirts.
Just great minds. Well, mediocre minds think alike, I guess.
We look like an evening anchor team.
You know,
How's the weather, Mark? Well, we have a high barometer.
yeah. So let me ask you this now: what kind of music do you like?
I like all kinds of music. I mean,
You have any favorite artist, particular that just overthrew your?
like right now, there's a 60s revival taking place right now with these groups like, I'm going to throw some names out you may not have heard of, Boy Pablo or Somersault. And they sound like the stuff that my parents and aunts and uncles turned me on to when I was a little kid, like Beach Boys and stuff like that. So I'm into those bands right now, but growing up, Beatles, Beach Boys, Rolling Stones had a huge influence on my life. Then later I got into top 40 radio. So pretty much anything that hit the top 40 from 1982 to 1994, I'm a huge fan of. If it was in the top 10, I'm a huge fan of it. And I remember when my friends and at clubs, we were all spinning hip hop, but you thought you'd never hear that on the radio. And then it started breaking through. You'd hear Rob Bass, Run DMC, Beastie Boys. And I remember like program directors saying, we're going to play this now, but it's just a fad. It's going away. And now it's the empire.
So, like growing up in Texas, was country part of?
You know how you rebel against,
Yeah.
what's kind of going on and
Yeah.
what's pushed on you. So it was, but that wasn't part of my scene.
Yeah, I was the same way. I never really had any real interest in country music. I have more now. Chris Stapleton and Smooth as Tennessee Whiskey or something like that is great.
And right now, if you said Willie Nelson's here, he wants to get high with you, I would blow 4 years of sobriety right now just to say that I did that.
Yeah. Well, Willie would want to do that.
Actually, you know what? They just came out. I hate to go all newsy on you, but they just came out that Willie Nelson said he's no longer smoking marijuana.
Oh, really? Wow.
Consuming nonetheless, but not smoking anymore.
Well, I know he and they had a thing with Don Nelson. Lives in Hawaii. They all live in Hawaii.
Yeah,
They play
yeah.
a lot of poker together. And Nelly was saying, that's what somebody asked him what he's doing. He said, well, mostly just smoking pot with Willie Nelson playing poker.
Sure.
So I guess, of course, if you're 78, 9, you ought to be able to do what you want to do, I guess.
I just applaud that somebody can do that and play poker.
Yeah, I do. I wonder sometimes, though, quite honestly, some of the older artists like Willie, at some point, it's like an old athletes that, they, the ship has sailed a little bit. I mean,
Right.
You want to, you want to remember them like they were and their voice and everything, but it's not there. It's not the same. And I just sometimes think that, whether it's just as a kid seeing Willie Mays stumble around in center field, it wasn't a pleasant thought.
Yeah.
I mean, you most players. I mean, I always admired Jerry West so much, and he retired really on top. He was still really good.
Yeah,
So could have played another year or two at a high level.
With athletes, there's definitely that shelf life. I guess with entertainers, it just depends. Like you look at Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney. With no offense, if you go to see Ringo Starr, you go, I miss the way it used to be. But if you see Paul McCartney,
Yeah,
he sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, they're obviously it's like anybody. There are, athletes. There's a Tom Brady. There's a Drew.
All right,
Brees
yeah.
That can still be really good, if not terrific, in their 40s. But that's a rare one, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar could still be really terrific at 40. But
Sure.
But most, it slips away.
Glory days.
Glory days, and of course, I think that applies to all of us.
Right.
I'm still waiting for the glory days, but I'm sure.
You haven't even hit your stride yet.
I haven't, I have not hit my stride.
I mean, look at this studio. I mean, look at you. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think that you would be on the forefront of technology, delivering a show the way the future is going to get everything on demand like this podcast in a studio as beautiful as this, all dedicated to you?
Now, using my name as in forefront of technology, I just learned to text about 2 years ago. So...
Wow.
So
It's a slippery slope.
That was a major step, and I always tell people, I'll text you back, but no more than 5 words. That's why they have phones you could to actually call and talk on, by the way.
Well, they get you in. Texting is kind of the gateway drug to the rest of technology. You're going to have your own TikTok channel like within the next 2 weeks. I guarantee it. Do you TikTok yet?
No.
Somebody on staff, I guarantee you will thank me. You will thank me the day you start TikToking. Get him to, will you guys please? I'm begging you. You won't regret it.
No.
Trust me.
Oh, TikTok. What is TikTok?
It's like Instagram on steroids.
Well, that's a good reason not to be on TikTok. I don't.
All right. You
know,
just
I
wait.
mean,
Maybe it's going to happen, maybe
yeah,
not. But if
well.
it happens, I'm taking credit for it. The
So-
Jerry Reynolds TikTok.
So, like in sports, what sports do you really like the most, or as a kid growing up, did you really want to participate in or follow it or anything?
Well, growing up in Odessa, Texas, you
Rugby
either
football.
played Permian high school football or you were nothing. So I just pretty much settled into being nothing.
Being nothing, yeah.
My brothers were great athletes. And so by the time I came along, whether it was junior high or high school, like PE coaches would go, "Are you sure you're Steve Stell's brother? Because you sure don't throw like Steve Stell.
Uh huh.
Are you sure? You're from the same gene pool as David Stell? Because my God, son, a ball that you send in motion will never go where you intended it to go." So I opted to stay away from that. I do well at all like non-ball sports. I can snowboard, skateboard, wakeboard.
Well, that's pretty. It takes a
Hang
lot
glide.
of athleticism for those. I mean, no doubt. I
I used to get the shit kicked out of me all the time by football players, so I can run like no other. Had I applied to track, I would have been okay.
might
'Cause I
have
can
been track or cross country. Might have been there for you, right?
maybe I can outrun any Permian high school football player because I've tried it.
But I mean, do you still follow football, NFL, college?
I do, but I'm like one of those people that I'm fickle. So whatever team's doing well, suddenly they're my favorite team. Admittedly, I'm fickle.
Yeah, well, I'm that way too in NFL. You know, I always say I am a front runner. I don't deny that.
Right.
You know, I mean, my son and I became Chiefs fans when we were in Kansas City for a number of years.
Sure.
I followed them, but then once they go bad, then I
Exactly.
wash my hands of them. So, you know, now they're good again. So
Right.
I follow them, and now I've really got to enjoy the Niners because they're terrific. You know, just
Yeah.
fun to watch. And you know, but if they slide, I'll turn on them like a dog. You know.
I'm the same way. Like I left Texas. I've lived in California most of my life, and I'm proud of it. And people go, "You're from Texas." I go, "No, I'm from California. I was born in Texas." But if the Dallas Cowboys start doing well, hey, you know, I'm from Texas.
Sure.
I worshiped that team growing up.
Yeah.
Roger Staubach. Yeah. He was a Cowboy, right?
Yes, he was.
Okay, just making sure. I don't know
Probably
my
their
sports
first
that well.
great- Yeah, their first great probably star, Roger Staubach.
I should interview you. What are your favorite movies? Like, what's the last movie you saw in theaters?
God, I'm trying to think. It was probably Ballbusters.
Which is great, Ballbuster.
But
And by the way, if you missed Apparition when it was in theaters, Apparition, the movie that Howard and I made with Mina Savari and Kevin Pollak, is now video on demand, Dish, Direct, Amazon Prime,
yeah, that was
Apple.
It was very interesting. I thought, yeah. But anyway, I'd say probably Godfather. Godfather 1 and 2 in particular were
Yeah.
classics. Raging Bull. I thought that was De Niro at his best.
I love how you mentioned that because like right now as this airs, we're in the middle of award season and Martin Scorsese with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino.
Yeah, The Irishman. That's terrific.
It's cleaning up. It's nominated already, Critics' Choice and Golden Globes. It's nominated for more awards than anything else. It's the front runner to win. And here's a guy, when we talk about men of a certain age, people of a certain age, how great is it to see this generation
When you're-
celebrated?
Yeah, I always say that when you're all time, you're gifted. Whether it's Brando and
Right.
In acting, I don't know that there's a cutoff. Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
Helen Mirren. They still can carry a movie.
I just saw Meryl Streep like disappear. Greta Gerwig from Sacramento has a movie out called Little Women that's also going to be nominated for an Academy Award. And Meryl Streep's in that. I thought,
is it?
how great is that? A girl from St. Francis, a young lady that grew up right here in Sacramento, is giving direction to Meryl Streep.
I wonder too, and like the Academy Awards, is it possible to have nominations for Best Actress without Meryl Streep being one of the nominations?
I don't know.
I don't believe it is.
No, there's a rule. There's a guideline.
No, I think there is a rule.
It's
So
locked in.
You can. The other four are open, but she's got to be there.
It's not the Oscars.
Yeah.
And plus, do you really want to be nominated if Meryl Streep's not competing against you?
Yeah. What would it mean?
Right.
It's obviously cheapened, but if she's there and you beat her,
Right.
hey,
That's what Howard and I opened Apparition opposite Star Wars Episode 9. And I said, yeah, we're going to get clobbered, but just to say we opened with Star Wars.
Yeah, there you are. Well, actually, though, I've kind of lost interest in the Star Wars thing, to be truthful.
Did you ever have interest in the Star Wars?
yeah.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. I think it just slipped sliding away a little bit. I mean, it's just like how many Rambos can you do? How many?
One too many, evidently.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I think, I don't know. I mean, it's to each their own. It's just not something that interests me a little bit. It's even like the Game of Thrones. I just loved it. And then they just kind of sped it up and sped it up. I mean, it's like all of a sudden the dragon might as well have been he did more damage than a jet plane. I mean, it's like, well, if he could have done that, why didn't you do that sooner?
Someone should have figured that out.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we don't need all these thousands of men. We'll just, hey, dragon, go up there and just in the city.
The person that was in charge of that particular plot line was also in charge of keeping Starbucks cups off the set. And it didn't work out. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, the big finale of Game of Thrones, some production assistant left a Starbucks cup and it made it to air.
Oh, wow.
On the set.
Yeah, that's what you call a major flub.
It happens.
It happens, yeah.
Much like much of my career.
Yeah.
So what are your favorite celebrities? Is there any movie star? If you could meet any movie star that's working right now or ever, who would that be?
Well, I actually did meet him. Probably my favorite most of the time was Jack Nicholson.
You met Jack Nicholson?
Well, that's back when I was coaching. He was, at that time, he'd go to all the Lakers.
Yeah,
games.
always courtside.
And, and I always remember him. But we had a little short conversation, but it's kind of funny because I was in front of him or something like that, and he said something like, "Hey, Jerry," he said, "why don't you sit down?" And I said that it's bad enough to pay whatever it was for these tickets to see a bad basketball game and not be able to see it. And I told him, I said, "Yeah, I know how you feel. I just saw Pritzi's Honor," and he laughed, and then
that's great.
And then we had a couple little chat, just a little thing like that. Yeah, and that was, so anyway, came back at him. But I mean, I always respected him, not just for his acting ability, but I mean, loved basketball, very knowledgeable about basketball, and love of the Lakers, even though I detest the Lakers, but.
I didn't know that. Have you been public about that before? Does everybody knows you detest the Lakers?
Yeah, they do. I used to be a big Laker fan because I was a Jerry West fan until I got in the NBA. And then I saw the error of my ways.
Right.
That they are the enemy, even though they may not know they're our enemy, but they are the enemy because they're the Lakers. They're in LA. They got all the advantages.
It's our California cousin.
Yeah. Which brings me to another issue. I don't know what your thought. Have you ever thought, and I know most people don't, the Warriors call themselves the Golden State Warriors.
Right.
Now, how is that? The Clippers are in the same state.
Yeah.
The Lakers are in the same state.
Right.
The Kings are in the same state.
How do they get Golden State?
How do they get the whole state? And why weren't they the Oakland Warriors when right next door was the Oakland A's and the Oakland Raiders?
What's the deal with that?
I'm pretty offended by it. If I was in Oakland, I'd be pretty offended by it. Now they're the Golden State Warriors going back to San Francisco.
Right. Do you have blue eyes, by the way?
I think they're kind of blue-green.
But that blue makes them pop.
The
reason I tell you that because Howard's over there laughing because I accidentally whipped out a Seinfeld just a minute ago. And anytime I wear blue Howard says, that blue makes your eyes pop. And he's making fun of me because I did an interview with Seinfeld one time where he gave me shit from beginning to end because I was wearing a blue shirt.
Jerry Seinfeld, now that had to be fun, huh?
He goes, you knew what you were doing. At some point, someone told you that you look good in that, and now you wear it every day.
Yeah, actually, I think my daughter told me that. That's
they
true.
do make your eyes pop, Jerry.
She didn't say I look good, but I look better than usual, I think is the exact words.
From a daughter, that's a compliment.
You take that as, but Jerry Seinfeld, come on,
He was great. I interviewed him, and they said, Mark is from Sacramento. He goes, Sacramento. Laughs Unlimited in the old Sac. And I said, that's right. He goes, I was depressed about that. He goes, I used to play that. I think, this is the best you can do. The old Sac. Come on, kids. Let's load up the station wagon and go see the old Sac. The best you can do in Sacramento is a tourist attraction that sounds like elderly genitalia. Great. And I used to play a club there called Laughs Unlimited. And as I recall, the laughs were quite limited. Which is good recall because he used to play, he and like that entire generation of comics, Leno, Shandling, Seinfeld, they used to play Laughs Unlimited because they would work out material and they would be playing the bigger clubs in San Francisco. But if it worked in San Francisco, that was almost a guarantee it wasn't going to work for Middle America when they played The Tonight Show.
Oh.
So they would drive over to Sacramento to test out material that
test
was
out.
more Middle America worthy.
That's amazing. I mean, what a marvelous career he's had. I always said too, with Seinfeld and Leno, some of those guys, their comedy was based, on real wit and funny lines, not necessarily vulgarity and body parts and
Yeah, it was more situational.
yeah, where I love Bill Burr and Ron White, guys like that, but
Right.
but obviously their slants go a lot of different directions, like so many comedians. But
Yeah, I love comedy like music. I love it all. Like anything that's
well, I
that's
think
sticking.
to me it's like sports. If you're anything that's really good,
Right.
If it's really they're talented, talent sells. I think, I think, like I say, that's with people always say sometimes we're doing games with the Kings and the Kings weren't very good, and they say, well, how can you enjoy? I said, well, I enjoy it because I love basketball. And I love seeing it played well. I would prefer it's played well by the Kings.
Yeah.
But I can appreciate it if it's the other guys.
Of course, talent is talent.
Talent's talent, and I mean, I think that's like say with movies, with terrific acting and stories and all that kind of stay with you, I mean, that's pretty meaningful.
That's right.
So-
I got to be honest. I don't know if you've been able to tell, but I've been incredibly intimidated being out here with you because you're a sports guy. I've never played a sport well in my entire life. Yet I appreciate your talent. You are one of the best at what you do.
Well, thank you.
And so to be out here with you is a great honor.
I feel the same way. I mean,
Oh, for the love, Jerry.
I've always wished I could, I think most people wish they could do things that other people do well. I mean, it's like I've always just admired, people that are good at what they do, whether it's singers, that you see singers that they're talented. You just think,
Yeah.
I wish I could do that. I wish I could, rouse a crowd like, I always say when I was a kid, I didn't really like Elvis Presley. Now you go back and some of his work, think, wow, he was great.
Yeah, whatever that something was, that magic, that je ne sais quoi.
He had it.
And you've got it in spades.
Oh, yeah, well.
Wait till you see your performance in Ballbuster in theaters later this year.
I don't think there's going to be any doubt that'll open up a lot of
Opportunities for you.
I may be too big to talk to you and Howard after that.
Exactly.
After it really opens up.
Meryl Streep's going to be saying, "Get me Jerry
Get me
Reynolds."
Jerry. And I say, Meryl, wait a minute. Get in line.
All right.
Get in line. So,
Like your Seinfeld.
so,
Did it? Sorry.
so I don't know. We probably kind of went over here, haven't we?
Oh, they're going to cut it. This is the best 4-minute interview you've ever done by the time we get through with it.
There'll be a little. There's a blurb of Jerry and Marquez.
That's the way I cut down my Tommy Lee Jones. You asked me who my favorites are. My least favorite, and I love the guy's work. He deserves every award and accolade possibly. But Tommy Lee Jones is pretty much any character you've ever seen him play.
Yeah.
He's that guy.
He's
And
that.
so my interviews with, the reason I bring it up, my interviews with Tommy Lee Jones, they always give me more time than I need. They end up being, hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me. That's pretty much what they
Really?
edit down to.
Uh-huh. Boy,
Once you trim the awkwardness
talk
out.
about a guy that's gotten Craigly looking. What a good looking guy he was when he was young. And I mean, now, he definitely more than shows his age, I think.
He looks a lot more Tommy Lee Jones every year.
Yeah, he is Tommy Lee Jones. isn't he?
All right, so I hope to see you at the big world premiere of Ballbuster. It opens in theaters everywhere this year.
You will.
Thanks for hanging out.
Well, thanks
for
thank
letting me
you
be
for
here.
coming here. It's a real honor. And obviously, I know the fans out there, everybody knew who you were. Now they know more about you.
Well, I did it just because I wanted to say that I actually shared some screen time with you. This is a great honor. And also thanks to McCreary's for the 5 rows of theatrical seating that they're giving me in exchange for this appearance. You guys are the best. I'm taking nothing.
Man, no shame, does he? No shame.
trying to work it.
Thank you. And
Jerry Reynolds, thanks for having me. That blue makes your eyes pop.